insanity that I had to deal with. Because the malevolent is crazy. Malevolent's crazy. We're going to try to get through this as quickly as possible. This will be number 3. We tried finishing number 3 earlier, but the malevolent chose to see that otherwise. Anyway. Throughout history, you can find examples of two great weapons typically opposing each other. Sometimes the two weapons will be actually on the same side. But if they are on the same side, it's the benevolent side. You can see this dual weapon combo thing in modern day stories, more modern day stories. You can see it in older mythologies, Celtic mythologies. In particular, when the Dagda brought, it was his great war club, and the great warrior Lug brought some great powerful sword into the battle against the Formarians. You can also see it in, if you look into the Hobbit or Lord of the Rings series, where you see the two elven forged swords. One was Glamdring and I don't remember both elven names. I remember the goblins called them Beater and Biter. And you see it like that. If you see it in Star Wars, you see the red lightsaber versus, well, originally the blue lightsaber, but then you show pretty much any other color other than red. You see in the Harry Potter series when you got the Elder Wand versus, no, not Harry's wand, but you got the Elder Wand, which changed allegiances, and then you have the Sword of Gryffindor, which maintained allegiance only to the Gryffindor. So, when you look at the sword and axe of maniacal styles, one of the basic underlying concepts and ideas of it was this historical duality of the two weapons. The Sword of Souls and the axe that will never miss. Two powerful weapons. What this actually has to do with maniacal styles is complicated, and that's not why we're discussing it. We're discussing it because we want to intertwine 3 things about this whole drawing story thing. This draw to story. FYI, that the original image of the sword and the axe was a concept designed by Maniacal Styles, a art student who was looking to pad her portfolio, did the original drawing of the sword and the axe over a red moon. Eventually the red moon just kind of faded off. It was just typically with the sword and axe, which is mentioned in song and, of course, on the label and things like that. Maniacal Styles asked this art student to come up with an axe and a sword that looked as if they could cut the souls right out of a person. And so she did, and there you go. So FYI, so if you want to look at it like this, the sword and axe of Maniacal Styles contributed to an art student going to art school. The malevolence definitely trying to interfere. Right now, it's trying to interfere in the form of a police helicopter. That's one of their favorite forms, by the way, police helicopters. They love traveling on police helicopters. I'm going to tell you some story about that more some other time, about the malevolence and, well, helicopters responding to emergencies that are typically respond to emergencies or violence or whatever, trauma helicopters. But let's get beyond that. Stay on point, Mr. Trance, and put this down. We don't need this right now. That's more for story time. This is story accenter, not this accenter. let's go to that sword and axe. Now, bring up the sword and axe and the drawing thing because of what happened. Now, as I mentioned, these two weapons, the two power weapons in any story, if they're on the same side, they're going to be on the benevolent side. The malevolent occasionally does have control over one of these weapons, as in, of course, the Star Wars series. The malevolent side is always in control of one of them, the red lightsaber. Anyway, if the malevolent were to control both weapons, it typically meant disaster for the benevolent. Because without a comparable weapon to battle against the other weapon, there's no stopping the malevolent from winning. The malevolent will win. So, to allow the malevolent to get a hold of both weapons would be disastrous in any scenario. Mythological, fictitious, real life, real existence. Yes, the malevolent should never be in control of two power weapons, such as these two dual power weapons. The duality power weapons. Alright. We're going to ballistic. We're going to have to take a little break so we can smoke a little green. It's time for round 2. There's a bell. Ding ding. Lyrics from You Should Be Afraid by Maniacal Styles. Maybe someday that'll be up. And I don't know who the hell that was trying to be me and dropping strange comic, that little short thing, but whatever. I ramble. You know what? I'm trying to educate people. Anyway, let's get to where we're going, because we're not getting anywhere, are we? No. Alright. So, Maniacal Styles was together. They got together and pretty much became a thing in 2007. Yeah, hint, hint. And then, unfortunately, it came to an end only about 5 years later. And I don't want to get into the details of actual what contributed to the dissolvement of Maniacal Styles, but I do want to get into this little oddity of what happened just prior to the dissolvement of Maniacal Styles. Now, as you saw in the comic, the Maniacal Styles comic, at the end, a large, scary, demon-type creature stopped Maniacal Styles, told them they weren't going any further. And that would actually be a foreshadowing of the future of Maniacal Styles. Let's jump ahead. Let's jump ahead to not too long, to a year, 2 years. Not be long before Maniacal Styles would be gone. Maniacal Styles started working with Grim Reality Entertainment, an independent music label. Okay. A lot of artists that Maniacal Styles worked with prior to Grim Reality had already been signed to Grim Reality, and it seemed only a matter of time until Maniacal Styles as well would be signing with the label. When Maniacal Styles did ultimately come to the table to sign with Grim Reality, the CEO of Grim Reality wanted to update the Maniacal Styles Sword and Axe logo. His reasoning was to make it easier to market as opposed to the complicated way the sword and axe looked. The sword and axe in their truest form are very, very detailed, yes, but honestly, Mr. Vain, could be already simplified. Mr. Vain had already figured out how. But you know what? New label, they want to make it more personalization. They want to be a little more personalized to Grim Reality. So Mr. Vain actually thought that it would be what was a common practice of the skull and cross mics, which is the symbol for Grim Reality Entertainment. Sometimes we'd alter the microphones for whatever artist was joining. They would change out the mics and turn it into something else. Whatever. Or you know what? Here we go. This is skull mics. That's the Grim Reality skull and mics. I love this. It's a beautiful take on the skull and crossbones. With the microphones. It's beautiful. And I thought. Well, I saw it all. Mr. Vain was figuring that the microphones would be replaced with a simplified version, more of a black and white outline of the sword and axe, which would have been great, right? That seems logical. Seems logical now. I thought it was logical then. Mr. Vain thought it was logical then. Apparently, that wasn't the logical response. Now, remember, spoke to you about a guy who told Mr. Vain he should get a book on anatomy for his picture. Well, FYI, that statement, that whole thing, didn't come about till at least a year, 2 years after Maniacal Styles had disbanded. Okay? So, that's not an influencer on any of this. That statement, that incident, had nothing to do with what is going on here. Alright? The CEO of Grim Reality went to this artist, as he had already been working with him before, and asked this artist to come up with a new sword and axe concept for Maniacal Styles. Okay? Fuck the design that the art student had come up with, I guess, whatever. Now, the concept, the idea, the results that this artist came up with for the new sword and axe, it's a nice design. It's actually very cool looking. I feel like that. It does look neat. It looks neat. However, it violates everything that the sword and axe duality had to do with anything. Mr. Vain went along with the concept because, of course, the CEO loved it, and I'm sure he paid for it. I don't know. I can't say anything about that. And then, of course, the other members of Maniacal Styles were like, yay. You see that? You see that? Okay. Yeah. I'm hoping it's... There we go. Yeah. He turned it into one fucking weapon. What a fucking idiot! That was Mr. Vain's thought. Lovely. It looks nice and everything. It looks really wicked and evil. But it defeats a lot of the idea and the concept of the sword and axe being two separate weapons. So guess what? Just after Maniacal Styles signed with Grim Reality Entertainment and that monstrosity became the new logo for Maniacal Styles, guess what happened? The Malevolent got a hold of it and used this one combined weapon to split maniacal styles. Yeah, just after that got designed, bye-bye maniacal styles. Maniacal styles, you shall go no further. Who knows what that demon was, right? It was malevolent. Anyway, my apologies for my rant and rave, but this needs to be understood. As I've pointed out, Mr. Vane agreed to the design change because basically he was outvoted on it. And as before, I said, yes, individually on its own, the design is lovely. The weapon design is lovely, but not for the logo of Maniacal Styles, sword, and axe. It's the Sword of Souls and the axe that won't miss. What the fuck was that? The splacks. Irritating. So, there you go. That's part 3. There's so many other things that, you know what? This has already gone long enough. I wanted to get to that point. I don't want to hate on anybody. I don't mean to hate on anybody, and it's not the it's just strange how things that seem mythological, that seem made up, that seem like they don't have to do with anything, somehow all tie together to come up with a strange and unfortunate ending to the group that was Maniacal Styles. However, we still want to share the music that did come out of Maniacal Styles during its short time. FYI, Sly is Wicked does still record and perform, and is still signed to Grim Reality. In fact, he became Grim Reality's primary artist just after the split of Maniacal Styles. Mr. Vane did stay on with Grim Reality, but he was never signed officially, and he just mostly helped with like video productions, things like that. Made a couple songs, but then when the exile came, Mr. Vane was basically distanced from by Grim Reality, well, at least particularly the label itself, the powers that be. Oh well. Okay, Sarah. Let's go. We're done here. This has already gone long enough. Minions, right? Minions. Malevolent and minions and people who just don't understand. And yes, I do. I do. I don't. You know what? I do. I'm not saying Mr. Vane. I do. Trance, the Specter skeleton, do partially blame the design flaw on the ignorance of the ass kissing by certain other members of Maniacal Styles. Let's get beyond all that, because we're not here to talk shit about anybody. We're just here to show you that reality isn't all that it seems. And it's, despite being grim, it is very maniacal and very misunderstood. Mr. Vane sees and understands a lot of these strange things. He can't always explain it. And he can't even always prove the realities. But that's what we're doing here. We're trying to shed light on this reality. The sub-physical realm is it's a real place, filled with real beings, a real existence, paranormal, supernatural, spiritual, whatever you want to call it. Non-believers, beware. It's just because you don't believe something exists doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And closing your eyes, denying a terror sometimes, and get that straight. The physical realm is not filled with terrible beings, mostly just misunderstood. The unknown is scary, but there are scary and there are dangerous. And for humans to deny, to close your eyes to this real thing, is to put yourself into very dangerous harm's way. Stop being a minion.